You know what I love? Phytoplankton. They're these tiny sea creatures, smaller than a grain of sand, and yet they make most of the world's oxygen, and we wouldn't be alive without them. Their lives are pretty chill, except this is Earth, God's favorite soap opera, and no one can have nice things. So to spice things up a little bit, they're constantly under attack by an invisible enemy. Parasites that eat their chromosomes, steal their bodies, make hundreds of babies, and then explode them. For decades, we had no idea how this evil puppeteer routine really worked. But recently, scientists took a closer look inside and they've made some horrifying new discoveries. As it turns out, the mechanism is what science can best describe as zombification. I'm Rhowan, master's student at UC San Diego, and welcome... That's the first time this has happened. Do you ever think we're gonna explain what the channel name means? Yeah. The parasite is called Amoebophria.
Amoebophria? I had
Amoebophria is a common marine parasite of tiny planktonic algae. Well, actually, its ancestors were also algae, but they gave up the ability to photosynthesize when they realized that it was a lot easier to have somebody else do the work. So, they hijack their hosts' bodies, effectively exploiting the host's photosynthesis for themselves, like a Wi-Fi pirate or, your average classmate in a group project. With their schedules cleared, Amoebophria can now focus on what really matters: making babies. But here's where it gets messy, because Amoebophria is a diva and wants the most dramatic exit possible. So when it's ready, it explodes its host to release its babies into the water. These babies are called dinospores, which sounds a bit like a T-Rex infected with cordyceps, but spores are exactly what they are. An infectious stage that drifts freely until it finds a new victim and makes a beeline for its nucleus. But what happens next? Well, we don't know, until this paper, which makes it crystal clear that what's happening really is zombification. If the hosts were the size of a human, the parasite would start off only about the size of a finger. But watch out, because it's about to hit a growth spurt. Its mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell. Its mitochondria starts as a tiny blob, then stretches out into a long tube, and then continues to stretch and twist, eventually forming a whole branched maze system, spreading so far and wide that it's turned into basically a giant bowl of mitochondrial spaghetti. Or mitochondriagetti. Spaghettochondria. By slicing up the parasite, scanning it with an electron microscope, then digitally reassembling the individual slices into a 3D model, this massive subway network of mitochondria was essentially empty. It didn't have the machinery responsible for energy production. It was more macaroni than spaghetti. So then, why is it big, and where does the parasite get energy in that case? Well, there were two essential clues in the parasite itself. Clue number one: the genes related to mitochondrial energy production were turned off, while the genes responsible for glycolysis were turned on. Let me explain. Normal mitochondria use oxygen and electrons stolen from glucose to make ATP. It's a slow but efficient process, like carefully refining raw petrol into fuel for your car. Glycolysis, on the other hand, is the process of ripping apart glucose just to make ATP. It's like lighting the whole oil rig on fire just to power your car. Very fast, very high horsepower, but also very inefficient. But that makes glycolysis a good, fast and furious way of cell growth, which is why cancer cells also use glycolysis. Clue 2. The mitochondria actually did start getting its machinery back when the cell was about to divide. Once fully operational, it breaks into pieces and moves to the edge of the cell. This means that the parent parasite uses this fast and furious glycolysis process to, well, basically bulk up. It grows in size and builds up a whole mega mitochondrial net, and then breaks it apart, handing a tiny piece of mitochondria to each of his babies before dividing. But let's take a step back. You might recall that I said
parasites that eat their chromosomes, steal their bodies, make hundreds of babies, and then explode.
We've talked about the last two parts, but what's up with the chromosome thing? Well, here's the fun part. You ready? The parasite parent needs a lot to grow. Membranes need fat, energy stores need sugar, and DNA needs a ton of different elements. By looking at what elements were inside the cell, the researchers found that the parasite is honestly a little bit malnutritioned. It's starving for potassium, sulfur, and nitrogen.
My mom would not approve of this diet.
Nah, it's terrible. But guess where there's plenty of those exact elements? In the host's chromosomes. In fact, potassium and sulfur content was nearly 10 times higher in the host than in the parasite's cell. So, researchers hypothesized that the parasite breaks down and digests those nutrient-rich chromosomes, which is why it rushes to the nucleus as soon as it can, because it is hungry for that delicious DNA. It picks the plate so clean that researchers couldn't even find any crumbs of half-eaten chromosomes left. At the same time, the parasite activates its own sugar metabolism genes and begins taking bites out of the host's starch stores, which we see to decrease over time. Like me stealing your ice cream when you leave it in my freezer for too long.
I knew I left more than that, bro!
But unlike us, the parasite knows when not to exploit its home. It leaves the host's chloroplasts, the machinery responsible for photosynthesis, unharmed, so that the host continues to produce sugar from sunlight, sugar which then feeds the parasite. So honestly, it's a very sustainable living setup. This parasite comes into your house, eats your books, eats your ice cream, builds a whole energy plant, then turns it into a nursery before exploding it to release its kids into the wild. Messed up. But it is just one house. Of course, when you take a step back and observe it from a neighborhood level, you can see how much damage these parasites really do to a whole community. During algal blooms, when tons and tons of phytoplankton are everywhere, up to 73% can end up infected with amoebophria. That's nearly 3/4 of the houses in the neighborhood rigged to blow. But don't feel too bad, because some of these phytoplankton we actually hate when they get overpopulated. Harmful algal blooms can cause serious ecological and economic damage. Blooms, or more commonly known as red tides, are responsible for domoic acid poisoning in marine mammals, seabirds, and sometimes even humans. So scientists are constantly looking for ways to kill harmful blooms before they start. And it seems like parasites might be the answer. In a way, these tiny, explosive, chromosome-eating, body-snatching parasites turn out to be the hero of the story. So size doesn't matter. It's how you use it. Wait.